They called her unsinkable, a floating palace of light and laughter. But in just 18 minutes, she became a tomb. One torpedo. One moment of silence before chaos consumed the Atlantic. Champagne glasses shattered. Children vanished in the smoke. The sky rained debris, and the sea, the same sea that once carried dreams, devoured them whole. Some say it was an act of war. Others, a cover-up that rewrote history. But what really happened beneath those dark waters? In the first years of the 20th century, Britain ruled the seas, and the Cunard Line wanted a vessel that would embody its supremacy. Thus was born RMS Lusitania, launched in 1906, a floating cathedral of steel and luxury. Her 4 towering funnels rose like golden chimneys over the Atlantic. Her interiors were drenched in mahogany, marble, and velvet, a moving monument to human pride. Passengers called her the Queen of the Atlantic. With a speed of over 25 knots, she could outpace most warships. But behind the music and champagne lay quiet suspicion. Britain and Germany were edging toward war. When the Lusitania sailed, she was not just a liner, she was a symbol, a glittering declaration of British confidence against growing shadows in Europe. When the First World War erupted in 1914, ocean liners became political pawns. The Admiralty quietly marked the Lusitania as auxiliary cruiser capable, though she was never armed. Officially, she was still a passenger ship. Unofficially, a potential weapon. By early 1915, Germany had declared the waters around Britain a war zone. The U-boats lurking beneath the Atlantic turned the sea into a battlefield without borders. Still, Cunard continued to sail the Lusitania from New York to Liverpool, filled with civilians, Americans, and British subjects, all trusting that no civilized nation would attack an unarmed liner. But rumors persisted. Some claimed the ship carried secret munitions. Others whispered that her speed made her untouchable. Each voyage became a gamble between pride and peril. On May 1, 1915, the Lusitania departed New York Harbor, her decks glimmering under spring sunlight. There were 1,959 souls on board. Families, artists, soldiers on leave, and those seeking refuge from a war-torn Europe. Among them, Rita Winfield, a young nurse from Chicago, carrying medical supplies and hope. Charles Laurier, a Canadian businessman returning home, confident the Atlantic was still safe. And Captain William Turner, a veteran mariner with ice in his veins and worry in his eyes. Before departure, a warning notice appeared in New York newspapers. Travelers sailing in the war zone do so at their own risk. Few took it seriously. After all, this was the Lusitania. For 6 days, the voyage was serene. The passengers laughed, dined to the sound of violins, and watched dolphins dance beneath the bow. But by the 7th day, May 7th, the sea grew strangely still. Off the coast of Ireland, mist hung low and the wind fell silent. Below those calm waters, the German submarine U-20, commanded by Walter Schwieger, tracked her silhouette through a periscope lens. At 2:10 p.m., a flash tore through the starboard bow. Passengers were thrown against the walls. A single torpedo had found its mark just below the bridge. Then, a second explosion, deeper, deadlier, ripped through the hull, shattering bulkheads and flooding the lower decks. Within 90 seconds, water was roaring down corridors. Laurier tried to help an elderly couple reach the lifeboats. When the ship listed, the boats snapped their ropes and crashed into the sea. Rita Winfield, waist-deep in freezing water, tore tablecloths into makeshift bandages, guiding children toward daylight that vanished with each tilt. Captain Turner gave the order, "Abandon ship!" But it was too late. The Lusitania was dying faster than anyone could understand. The power failed, plunging the decks into shadow. Smoke and oil turned the surface black. Some jumped, others prayed. In the control room of U-20, Schwieger watched through the periscope, shocked at how fast she sank. "Too many people," he whispered, and turned away. At 2:28 p.m., just 18 minutes after impact, the pride of the Atlantic disappeared beneath the waves. Silence followed, except for the wind and the cries echoing over the debris field. The survivors floated amid oil and wreckage for hours. Rita Winfield was pulled onto a lifeboat, her hands burned and eyes hollow. Laurier never surfaced. Captain Turner, clinging to wreckage, was rescued, but his spirit sank with his ship. Of 1,059 aboard, 198 were lost, including 128 Americans. The world was stunned. Newspapers screamed, "Murder on the Atlantic." Britain called it an atrocity. Germany claimed the ship carried munitions, and the evidence, still disputed to this day. Divers later found shell casings and cartridges within the wreck, buried under a century of sand. The Lusitania's wreck rests off the coast of Kinsale, Ireland, in 300 feet of cold Atlantic silence. Her hull split, her story half told. The sea does not forget. Beneath the waves, the Lusitania lies in darkness, her clock forever frozen at 2:28 p.m. Every rivet and shattered cup still whispers of those last 18 minutes, when laughter turned to screams and history shifted course. It wasn't just a sinking, it was a message, written in salt and fire, that even the greatest marvels of man are helpless against the tide of war. The ocean keeps its secrets, but the echoes of the Lusitania still call from below, a warning to every generation that follows.